be they traditional, whether based on religion or African traditional religious practices, we had norms that recognize the essence and the place of security in the affairs of man. And these beliefs that we had were anchored on institutions known to everybody in the society. If you are into, say, an Islamic outfit, they had the traditional al-Kali courts that administered Sharia. If you had, Christianity, they had their norms in the Christendom on how to face, offenders and whatever the offenses are, on security or whatever. If you go to traditional institutions, meaning those who practice traditional African religions, they had norms. Now, any of these three sources of beliefs or approaches to ensuring security, they were controlled by the symbolism of the traditional institution.
Yes.
Anybody who is privileged to head a community is imbibed ab initio with his upbringing into the values of the society. And through that, they had means of knowing who was who at the time. And there were, far back to that time, there were people, there were families that were known to have one or two irritant members of society, of their community. They had ways of dealing with them. Not just from the point of view of security to life. All the things we cry about today, cruelty to children, cruelty to animals, discrimination against women, prostitution, rapes, and what have you. Society had a firm control as to how to contain challenges from this. Somehow, when the white man came, he realized this. And he decided the best way for him was to rule through what he now christened indirect rule.
Indirect rule, yes.
So he allowed, whether he's in the east or in the north or in the west or in the south, once he established his colonial administration, to allow the traditional institutions to flourish, to go on with what they did, to ensure security of their societies, to ensure law and order in their societies, and they are answerable in finality to the King of England. All right? As long as they collected their taxes.
And with that traditional authority.
With those traditional authorities. Somehow, after independence, the First Republic continued along the line with some modifications here and there that permitted for the good governance of the country, whichever part of the country you're talking about. Then, with what we call increase in population, with civilization, in quotes, civilization, with Western education, with exposures that we started having, people started to abandon course.
Yes.
And we started adopting without any checks. We started becoming copycats, if you permit that expression. I say so with every sense of responsibility and respect to community, to various communities. And this copycatism did away with who we are. While or before the coming of the colonials, one other very important thing was you don't give anybody any position of responsibility without checking his roots.
Yes.
Without checking, having records, understanding the records of life.
Yes.
What character does he have? What is his standing in society? What attributes of society, of family, does he have or does she have?
Distinguished Senator, I like that takeoff.
Yes.
You know, going back to ancestry, as it were.
Yes.
You know, going back to the values, to the roots. Why do we have this drilling value system? The distinguished senator talked about exposure to other values. We're talking about globalization. Today the world is a global village. You can communicate within this part of the moment and get action and reaction. Anything wrong? What was that wrong, actually?
He started very well,
Yes.
because he's gone back to the roots of who we were as a people before we met the doom called colonization and civilization.
Yes.
I remember that the French people who colonized our brothers in the Francophone countries said that they have come on a mission civilisatrice, a civilizing mission.
Okay.
That's what they said. That's how they justify their own. Yes.
Assimilation.
Yes.
Assimilation.
You know, and then they said the people have to now live like them, to be assimilated, so that they become black French people. In our own case also, things got on gradually until we found ourselves where we are today, where you don't know whether we are black or white. But God, in his infinite wisdom, created us the way he created us, so that there will be varieties. And we have a responsibility to maintain our identity. You have never seen a coconut tree that changed into a palm tree overnight. God has a purpose for each and every one of them. Now, you mentioned the next danger coming. That's the danger of globalization. Globalization is actually the new colonization, where you are not allowed to think on your own. You are just consuming what is coming from the global village, where you are contributing nothing to. You are just a consumer. Consumer of cultures. I mean, just let me give you one funny example. When we were young, you know, we looked at jeans, Tongarine, as some dirty dress that people who are lazy, who can't wash their dresses, go and buy, so that they can keep all the dirt and look like a tough guy. But today it has become
like a cowboy.
I mean like a cowboy. Today it has become a norm that everybody is wearing it. Little by little, the Americans have pushed it into our psyche that for you to look like a real guy, you must wear jeans. Now,
to be thick,
you know. But do we produce the jeans? All we are doing is exporting our little income here to bring these things in. So globalization poses another threat, a very big threat, that by the time some of us are gone, these children may not recognize who they really are, whether they are black or white, and then that creates the security problem you are talking about. Do you know that it has become very fashionable? I mean, I don't know whether people feel as shocked as I am. The shooting at YouTube office was done by a girl. I mean, a girl, a young girl, took her gun and shot at some people and scattered the place. So these cultures are seeping in little by little. We already have them here now, because people manufacture IEDs. Yeah? In the culture that actually gave birth to us, such people of questionable characters were always identified in the community where they came from, because everybody knew everybody. I tell you what happens in my place up till now anyway. If you want to marry an MBC girl, you first have to bring a jar of wine for inquiry.
Palm wine.
Yes, palm wine. We have to inquire about you, where you are coming from, and then you inquire about the family you are marrying into, and then you have a middleman who is leading these inquiries. We want to know whether this family you want to marry into, whether they have been thieves in the past, whether they are epileptics, whether there's madness, whether there's anything. So you go through that stage until they say, okay, bring wine for knocking on the door. When the inquiries have been done. So this is how our traditional society was. Everybody virtually knew everybody. And of course, as I said, the people who ran the society had a moral authority over everybody. if you became a nuisance, you could get lost. And society continues. And nobody gets worried. For the stability of the moral conscience of society, people could be gotten rid of.
Yes.
So today we've lost it because we have copied all sorts of models. Now in my place you still have what you call the autonomous community.
Yeah.
That autonomous community is looked after by a chieftain, a traditional ruler, who is supposed to know everything that is happening in that community.
Yes.
And can summon his people anytime, collects reports anytime, and then is in charge of the security, if you like, of the place.
In the ensuing situation, so to speak, when you talk about mistrust,
Yes.
is very detestful for people that want to have progress, but that is the reality. And when the current administration came in, Bukhari administration, she said we should look inward.
Exactly.
From the economics and to the values of the people. That is, economics, we should grow what we need to consume, not to import them. And from the values is fighting corruption. Nobody had ever thought we would find on the screens and the pages of newspapers list of looters. We have all these kind of things, and it's an image, kind of derailing image and derailing values of the system. So how do we now get our acts together? Not just relying on the conventional authority. People said the military, the police are overstretched by the cankerworms in the society. What is the values of the traditional rulers now, especially you, coming from the legislature?
Well, you see, the traditional institution is founded on giving philosophies of every community. They have inherent beliefs naturally habitating in them of what life should be, what kind of society they should have. Okay? And it is from there that the leader of their community, by whatever name, who represents the symbol of those philosophical beliefs,
Yes.
Emerges.
So that was why, what informed your decision perhaps to sponsor a bill in the Senate?
Yeah.
On this
So, over time, we enjoyed some level of stability because of this
Yes.
foundation that our cultures, our traditions, our norms, were built on. Unfortunately, with time, under the pretext of education, Western education, we started allowing our people, our efforts to derail. We don't believe, or if we do, we don't assert the being of our beliefs any longer. You see a guy, he comes to town, there's a meeting with his community, they want something, he flouts 2 million, 3 million, 5 million. What they come to discuss in the public square, say, okay, everybody makes his contribution as stakeholders, and he places 1 million naira as a contribution, said, wait, our son from Lagos has put 1 million on the table. To talk, he must beat this one. All right? Or he is brought, he's honored with some titles, whether he's deserving of them, not deserving of them, he becomes an icon. He becomes somebody that younger people or people in the society recognize.
Yes.
And how did he come there?
Nobody
How did
checks.
he come there?
Yeah.
Nobody checks. So because of this, the traditional institution itself, unfortunately, began to get affected.
With such patronage.
Yeah, exactly, because through this patronage, there is a kind of penetration of the ills that are being imported now. What they would not do in the past, they now begin to do them also in the name of civilization. Most of the traditional institutions now, which part of Nigeria you go to, are now being run by educated, not only educated people, but people who have had challenges in everything called governance. Bankers, very high-ranking retired military officers, policemen. Now, are on the saddle of the great-grandfathers. So to the extent of the influence of this Western indoctrination of the so-called global village that we're talking about, they also have to behave, they are civilized. And to the extent of that civilization, they forego certain basic ingredients of societal values that they are supposed to protect. Go anywhere in this country today, you find whatever makes the traditional institution tick, somehow, either through some level of frustration, they have been, to some extent, their influence has been brought down.
Maybe they don't have much role to play.
The greatest problem it faces is the fact that the grand norm of this country called Nigeria, which we call the Constitution, before 1999, there are specific provisions that recognize traditional institutions because of the role they have played. Somehow, overnight, in the pretext of review or amendment, every single letter that addressed the issue of traditional institution in Nigeria was removed from the Constitution.
Yes.
And every Tom, Dick and Harry now knows a traditional ruler, first class or whatever status he is, east, west, south or north, it does not have his office in the Constitution. Yes. They say, oh yeah, any state can do any bylaw to make provisions for the trade, but it's not going to be as important, it's not going to be as intrinsic, it's going to be as applicable as you will desire if it were in the national grand norm.
Yes.
Okay, so this has frustrated them, and all that we see today is a traditional ruler, a governor visits his town or where he's in authority, and then he goes there, he sees him in the best of regalia, you can imagine, and then, oh, you are the father of our society.
So
that's all it's.
I believe you are pursuing that cause of the Senate.
Some way back in the 7th Senate, the records are there. I initiated a bill.
Okay.
You know, that we should not only recognize traditional institutions in the country as we used to do, but I did in that bill propose that we have a national council of traditional rulers of Nigeria.
Yes.
And they were not supposed to get executive functions per se, but the major acts of the executive, you know, has to be given for their attention, for advice. They had advisory roles to play. Okay. What you make of it is a matter of practice.